This plan, the NDP, is bold and far-reaching, encouraging all the elements necessary to improve the lives of our people. It's a living document. It's open to innovation and fresh perspectives that are intended to improve and sharpen it. Its baseline and fundamentals are non-negotiables, and these non-negotiables is what is central in the NDP, which is write a new narrative or a new story for South Africa. I believe this story has to rightfully be written or led in the writing by South Africans themselves.
The NDP should be much more sensitive to the fact that national interests and regional interests are not incompatible. In fact, the development of South Africa is very much dependent on the development of the continent as a whole and of the region in particular.
This is not the domain of government. It's about all leaders I see in the room and what contribution we make thereof.
How do we understand our national interest? Do you know that there is a national interest policy document floating around government circles, which outsiders are not allowed to read? What does this mean? How do we understand our role in Southern Africa? And commentators point out that except for Mr. Mhlongo as the Deputy ES, there are no other South Africans to be found in the structures of the SADC headquarters. Dr. Solomon might want to comment on this. What is South Africa's role in the rise of the South? What can it learn from developmental experiences of emerging economies? And in turn, what lessons does it have to offer? 4, is the South African diplomat geared to effectively and efficiently conduct economic diplomacy in support of the country's domestic priorities?
Minister, if we talk about development, and you look in terms of the economic section of the NDP, in relation to the question of the GCO efficiency, it says that we must move from 6.9 to 0.60. What does that in reality mean in relation to the question of inequality and poverty in our country?
Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Mtanda Zonlev. I'm the public policy advisor with Oxfam. I mean, just to validate what Tumisane was saying, in South Africa, we've got 2 people controlling the wealth that is equivalent to the half of the population, that is 26.5 million. Anyway, in practical terms, I want to ask, directed to the Minister, what South Africa is doing, acting along with BRICS G20 to curb the tax dodging and as well contributing towards the closing of the tax governance system, looking at tax evasion as it deprives the nation of much needed resources to finance development and inequality in South Africa. Thanks.
If you look at the output of the SADC region, 68% comes from South Africa. So, on that regard, the issue of economic diplomacy is a given, whether you like it or not. The point is, diplomacy is you give and you receive. Where is the balance on that regard? Those are my 2 questions.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
Finally, I suppose I'd like to raise the challenge to human rights that is being framed at the international level, that is influencing the decision, the statistics that I quoted around 95% of South Africa's rural water being used by the corporate sector, and that is that there's a global contestation of human rights. That the Nestle CEO can say that water is not a human right, that the General Agreement in Trade and Services says that water, health, education, etc., are not really human rights. They can be, they're first and foremost commodities.
We have come out of a system whose fundamental logic is to dehumanize. And the character of the state and apartheid, of many things, was to dehumanize, including dehumanizing those who were privileged. The white people were privileged. It was to dehumanize them by making them non-human, but making them superhuman. It is to dehumanize them, to create a false sense of superiority. And it colored the foreign policy outlook of this country, which saw Africa as an empty place to play power games in, rather than as a home for the continent to go. So it is a historical imperative for us to re-insist on that which is actually supposed to be mundane, that we will relate with others on the basis of humanity, because coloniality had embedded the idea of inhumanizing other people, seeing others as subhumans, and acting in a manner that only wants to benefit us as a South Africa, which is why it was very easy for South Africa, without any apartheid South Africa, without any touch of conscience, to invade Lesotho, to invade Botswana, to subvert other countries through the International Cooperation Fund of the time, and all of those kind of things. It was relating with Africa, but it was relating with Africa with a particular outlook that you want to change. That outlook continues in the manner that some of our business relates with the continent.
All the evidence points to the fact that if you invest in your people and if you invest in infrastructure, you benefit from globalization. If you don't, you get hurt by it. So I think one has to go beyond the standard things of these are the bad people and these are the good people. I think we have to see the context in which forces operate.